evening. Good evening. Welcome to Detroit Black and White, your Friday evening's edition of Detroit in Black and White. This evening, who you had on deck this evening is Allan Lengel. Good evening, Allan.
Good evening. Good evening.
Deadline Detroit, former writer for the Washington Post, also wrote for the Detroit News. Am I right? And
11 years. 11 years.
And it was American Eagle or?
Oh, the Eagle American.
The Eagle American. I got it.
Adolph was the editor. I was the sports editor.
Oh, you would. Oh, that's why you talk about sports all the time.
Yeah, Adolph was the boss.
You forgot union activist.
Right.
He's union activist in my world.
Right. And we have Mr. Jim Nardone, our guy from down in Trenton, former police chief for Trenton Police Department. Good evening, Jim. How are you?
Happy Friday. I'm well, thank you.
That's good. So before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to those people who have joined us live. And we want to ask you guys to continue to comment. Janet, good evening. Great to have everyone here. Let's do this. Yes, let's do this, Janet. This is y'all show tonight, I believe. Karen Winston, she said, good evening, good people. Mr. 1213, good evening. And Mr. Duckett said, good evening. Good evening, all. So I'm going to let you guys take it today. No,
I have a question for Jim, really. I have some concerns about what's happening, and it's not exclusively there, but the Warren Police Department, where they've had two chases, one where they chased a person who was accused of choking his girlfriend and trying to burn down her house, which is pretty serious stuff. I don't know if they chased him or tracked him down in Detroit, and there was a shootout, and I guess in the end, maybe he shot himself. And then the Warren police were chasing some car thieves and into Madison Heights, and they crashed into the Braised Burger place. And so I have a question. When is it appropriate, and how do you weigh the danger to the public in these chases and the danger to trying to catch these people who are perhaps a menace? But it seems like in a domestic dispute, as violent as it might be, it seems like you know who it is. You can show up at the house. You don't have to get into a big shootout in the streets. But that's my opinion. I'm curious what Jim.
So back when I started, a seatbelt violation was a reason enough for a police chase. Then it became who's dangerous. And how do you determine who's dangerous? You know, it's ever evolving. You don't know if the guy in a stolen car, if the guy just borrowed his sister's car and you're chasing him for driving his sister's car, you don't know if he just killed a guy in a bar down the street. I had some incidents where, you know, I thought I had a drunk driver, and it turned out that the guy had robbed a place, had a stolen car, broke into a house, occupied house, and I thought, well, I just got a drunk driver. He's going to slow down. We chased him down the road for 3 or 4 miles. It was wintertime. He crashed the car. Mm-hmm. Little to find out that he terrorized the family, et cetera, et cetera. So you never know. But now most policies say for felonies only. You know, for traffic violations, you cannot pursue. Mm-hmm. Well, you just never know what you're dealing with. You don't know if it's a domestic case. You don't know if there's a dead body back at the house. And, you know, Adolph is big on Detroit. Why are they coming to Detroit? They're a border community. Why are they enforcing laws on the border? And Adolph's not here, as most of you have noticed. We hope to have him in the morning. You just don't know. You just have no idea. You know, there may be a 6-month-old baby in the car that was just kidnapped. Yeah. So you have to use common sense.
Right. But it's, I mean, I understand the dangers. You know, we want to get people are violating the law. There's a reason perhaps that they're fleeing. But on the other hand, we've seen people die, innocent people die from these crashes. I mean, the one guy crashed into Braised Hamburger. The other guy, they get into a shootout. There's bullets flying. And so it's a danger, but then how much do we put the public in danger to do that? I used to do ride-alongs when I was at the Washington Post in DC, And these guys would, they weren't supposed to, but they do a chase up until they would get to the Prince George's County border, and then they would
Oh
stop.
yeah,
And then
PG is an interesting county.
yeah, PG is a wild county, but they would phone in to the PG police and say, hey, guys, speed, blah blah blah. But I guess it's a balance. I mean, like we saw the guy in Grand Rapids, the officer who did a traffic stop and chased him, and it ended up being this deadly situation where,
Encounter, right?
to me, I mean, it looked like, unfortunately, I mean, and you've been perhaps in situations where you've had to wrestle with somebody, and you feel your life is being threatened, but he shot the guy right in the back of the head. It seems like you could get up and say, pull the gun on and say, don't move or I'm going to shoot you. But he just,
I think they were all past that point. And the unfortunate thing, you bring up an interesting point is, if that police officer had just driven by that guy in that day and went down the road to do something else, none of this would have happened. But you never know. He thinks he's doing the right thing, and it ends up in a tragedy, right? Either situation. As far as Warren chasing people into Detroit, you can only go where the bad guys are leading you. When you talk about PG County, a lot of the bad guys, like PG County was the area where if you're in DC, they felt like they were safe if they got into Prince George's County in a lot of instances. So that's where they fled to. So there's something there.
They're border communities. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess if they knew, I'm sure some of them knew that they were not going to get chased once they crossed over in the border, but the DC police would phone, radio into the PG police and say, we've got the description of this car speeding, blah, blah, blah. But I guess I understand the idea that anybody could be dangerous, but it's also weighing the dangerous situation where we've seen people get killed. Innocent.
But the reality is when you're in I believe, and I'm not a police officer, but I believe that when you are in the middle of doing something like that, your adrenaline is going, using your best judgment, right? You're trying to do your job, and your job is to apprehend this person that you believe has done something that is a foul of the law. And so if you are on the receiving end, like the business owner that, incur damage to their building, or a person who, ends up dying as a result, of course you blame them. But the reality is, when your adrenaline's going and you're trying to do your job, those are the things you're trying to do, that balancing act. There's a whole lot of factors that go into that. I just don't believe that they're just the police officers are just being, and I'm not suggesting that you're saying this. I'm that they're being reckless or anything, or uncaring.
Hey, Jennifer, I can't see him either, and I have glasses. So.
Oh, I can read the comments.
Laura Davis says you're also racist.
I'm not sure.
Who said that?
Be a little more specific. The guy ran into Detroit. That's not racist. That's a fact. So you may think that's racist, but the Warren police chased the guy where he led them. So he probably knew an area where he thought he could get away, and that's very typical. So.
Yeah, and that people. I will say this: people word racist. They throw it around a lot, and I don't know if people really knows what racism really means. But that's
they're welcome. They're welcome to believe whatever they want.
That's your opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion. But I think in this case, I don't know if this is an issue of racism. I don't know.
I think it's an issue of police policy. Like I say, for the domestic dispute, they know who the guy was. They probably could have tracked him down, or just came up on him in a way that they some way that they could have found him, like waited on him coming out of a house, or
So, but here's what happens, Allan. So the guy gets on. The police quit the chase at 12 Mile and Van Dyke and Warren. Right, the guy jumps on 696. And they turn off lights and siren, and the guy drives away. The guy still thinks the police are behind him, or the police in Oak Park or in
Gotcha.
Ferndale are behind him, and he crashes into a family at the I-75 and 696 and kills them. Now the police still get sued.
Yeah.
And they don't, the guy that's running still running. He don't quit running just because he thinks he doesn't see any lights and siren. He's still running. He might be doing 100 miles an hour at 75 and 696 and, kill a family of 6.
So a couple of our viewers, and I think Janet made a really good point, and so did Mr. 1213. He says license plate chips should be made so when people is following when the police is following a suspect, they could just scan the chip and send it to a drone to track the car's whereabouts instead of giving chase. And Janet says the seriousness of the offense and risk to public. The risk to public safety should determine a chase. I agree with her, but I think that usually is what goes into whether or not they should pursue it. Is that true, Jim, or not? No.
Like we were talking about earlier, you shouldn't chase somebody for a seatbelt ticket, or you shouldn't chase a sport motorcycle. I worked when they had. I ended up in Hamtramck when I guess it was a tornado struck back in the early 90s. I don't know if you guys recall that. Mm-hmm. And the cities were destroyed. Well, I was out on I-75 in I think Holbrook, and those motorcycles were going by me. I was up directing, keeping people out of the Hamtramck city because it was destroyed. And those motorcycles were going 120, 130 miles an hour underneath me. Wow. I mean, 50, 100, 200 motorcycles. Huh. Chasing those motorcycles is going to get somebody killed, and I don't think many departments would chase that now.
Right.
We've learned over the years there's been too many dead motorcyclists. Yeah. But the point made, I forgot who made the point, Mr. 1213, is technology is really the answer. We have the availability. We have the availability to shut down cell phones when you get in a motor vehicle, but nobody's done it because of the money, right? You also have the opportunity to shut down cars. I see the technology, but mm-hmm. nobody's really interested in following up with it.
Yeah. And when you say the money, please expound on that, please.
Well, cell phone business is a big business, and people use their cell phones 24/7, and cell phones should shut down the minute your engine starts up. My point is the technology can do that. The technology can figure out that there's a motor running within 6 feet of you and shut down that device. But they're not moving in that direction. I wish they would. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But there is the technology, a drone technology, whatever the case is. But a guy that allegedly chokes a woman who had been arrested previously for violence against this young lady, and then he tries to burn down her house by arson, and then he gets in his car and takes off. Who's going to argue that young man? It's tragic that he passed. I feel bad that nobody got to him before this time, but he is a threat to society. Call it what you will.
Well, you know what? I guess you could say he's a threat to society. But I think it's more he's a threat to this woman who he choked and he tried to burn her house down. But is he a threat to other people?
He was a threat to other people when he decided to get in a police chase.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying, I mean, this is me speaking as a non-police officer. I would think, like, we know his name. Obviously, we go to the woman. She says, here's where he lives. Here's his name. Here's his relatives, whatever. Let's just, we'll look for him and we'll find him. But it just seems more risky when you do the chases.
I agree with that, but you're saying that he's mad at one woman, he's mad at the world. You don't know who he's mad at. He might want to go kill his mother.
He might go and shoot.
And I say there's so many cases like that, and I see them every day, and I'm a defense attorney. You can have these people acting a fool. It could be a man or a woman acting a fool with the other one. And guess what? When it's time to go to court, dismiss. Why? Because they don't show up. They've already made up. I've had, and I
95% of the time that happens.
I had somebody about 6 months ago. The complaining witness, the victim, called me and said, "Did my husband tell you that I ain't going no GD where? Stop calling him. We're not going to court." I mean, look, I'm glad, ma'am, you're not going to court, but I need to talk to my client. But the point is, a lot of times they and I shouldn't say makeup because I think there's a psyche that goes behind that when people are involved in domestic violence. I think there's something going on up there. But yeah, a lot of times those things get dismissed, and that's really unfortunate.
I mean, there's no question that it's violent. I mean, he tried to choke out his girlfriend, tried to
Allegedly.
burn. Yeah, well, he's charged with that, and he tried allegedly to burn her house down. That's a pretty and obviously we've seen instances where somebody goes and shoots a relative and then goes to the next house and shoots
the
them,
other relative.
and so it's I guess it's a judgment call there, but
it's a hard decision to make
Yeah.
because if you let him go, if you just walk away from it, you don't know what he's going to do 5 miles down the road.
We're
Yeah.
going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll tackle the next topic.
There was a time as a kid I lived in an abandoned house. My first sermon was to 26 people. Now we're 40,000 strong. I'm Solomon Kinlock. Direct action has been my life's work, delivering groceries to thousands of families in need. My plan, tackle poverty with training for jobs that pay $35 an hour, build 10,000 affordable homes, and make every neighborhood benefit from investment, not just downtown. I'm Solomon Kinlock. Lift every block.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
We're back, Detroit in Black and White. First, we want to say thank you for all those that are making comments and watching Detroit in Black and White. We want you to hit that like button, like. You can even dislike it. We just want to be in the algorithm. We also want you to subscribe. We want you to tell all your friends about Detroit in Black and White, the greatest show on these YouTube streets. And good evening to you Facebookers. If you want to participate, we want you to participate. You can join us in the comments. As a matter of fact, Kenneth Powell, who always encouraged people to subscribe, and he always says, good evening, Kenneth. We really appreciate you. And Karen Winston, who watches the show every time we air when she can. Thank you so much, Karen, for watching, but not only that, for participating. When we went on break and that commercial that just played, I think I saw an article today. As a matter of fact, I know I saw an article today about that doggone Robert Davis.
huh.
Did you see that, Allan and Jim?
I ended up writing a piece. I was sort of holding back on it, and then to be honest, he came to me about it, and I was sort of. I was like, yeah, and then the Detroit News did something, and it's a balance between me saying I'm not going to write anything of this. It's a judgment call. I don't want to be looked on like I'm not going to write anything that's even if it's a legitimate story. Mm-hmm. And so I finally did. Mm-hmm. But I'll actually read you Dan Lejana, who is the spokesman for Kinlock. Mm-hmm. I'll read you his quote.
Tell our viewers what I'm talking about. Because
Robert Davis, who's an activist from Highland Park, who is always trying to
Ex-con, right? Ex-con.
Okay.
Well, he's always looking for technicalities.
And he says he doesn't get paid. I don't believe that.
That's what I asked him today. He said, I asked him, I said, are you working for anyone? Is anyone paying you? And he said, no, absolutely not. So, but here's what, basically what he's saying is that he wants the Attorney General and the Secretary of State to investigate Jonathan Kinlock for voter fraud, for fraudulent registration. And the rule is that you have to live in the city for a year before
you. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
For file for office. And so Kinlock initially came in March of 2024. He has a house in Oakland Township, a very nice house apparently. So he hasn't sold it, but he did register to vote at an address on Michigan Avenue, right downtown, which is it's basically a Marriott run. They call it a Detroit like apartment, but it's also like you can go for one day.
It's like
You
an
can-
extended stay.
Yeah, right. You can go for a week. You can do months and months. And so Kinloch originally went there, and then he went to his brother's. Then he registered at his brother's place on Gratiot, and then he eventually got an apartment next to his brother in the Greektown area. So Davis is saying that, and it's speculative. He doesn't know 100%, but he's saying that he wasn't really living there full time when he registered to vote in those areas, in those particular addresses. So he's asking the Attorney General to investigate for voter fraud.
And they're going to tell him kick rocks.
Yeah. So a spokesman for Kinloch, Dan Lejana, who's also been the spokesman for the Q line, he's been around for a while. And Dan says, he said, first of all, he says, the Reverend's done nothing wrong. He's registered to vote properly. He's done everything properly and above board. And then he says, you now have members of the media participating in an Obama birther level style campaign without any basis in fact, without checking any facts, based on speculation from someone who has made wild accusations in the past that have proven untrue. There are important issues all over this race that aren't being covered. It's an embarrassment.
And guess what? I concur. I agree with that statement by the spokesperson. Listen, unless you have some real facts, that's speculation, what he wrote to them. I'm like, well, what are you just trying to be a nuisance? He is a nuisance. I know. Well, look, I was one of the people who bit the dust because of Robert Davis. He's good at what he does sometimes, and sometimes he's not. But for people to believe that he's not getting paid, I don't believe that to save my soul. Now, I wish I could tell you guys why, but I don't believe it. So it's coming from out of my mouth. I don't believe it. Okay.
Well, I mean, really, honestly, for the press, really to have that, the press.
Why he's not here tonight, Eric? I'm sorry.
The press really, to do the story right, would have been hanging out, surveilling the Oakland Township property or surveilling the Detroit property to see if Kinloch was showing up there. Probably easier to go out in Oakland Township, although it's hard to be inconspicuous sitting in a nice neighborhood, sitting there for hours without somebody becoming suspicious. But
how do you prove it? That's really the question.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I have an interesting story. When I was at the Washington Post, I had just gotten there, and if they had asked me after I'd been there for a little while, I would have never done the story. But Marion Barry was the mayor. Marion Barry had served time in prison, got out, got a reelected mayor, and he was telling everyone, I'm living a clean life now. I'm loyal to my wife. And our City Hall reporters were like, no, he's got girlfriends. He's got one, near the train station. He's got one in southwest Detroit. So they had me. I'd only been at the Post for a few months. They had me surveil the girlfriend's, one of the girlfriend's house. I sat out there for probably 4 hours, and I was calling friends going, you wouldn't believe what they're asking me to do. And I thought, well, so what if he shows up to the house? I got to peek in the window to fucking see if they're actually having some sexual relations. Anybody could have a friend and say, stop by or whatever. And then they sent me out to the apartment building, and I sat out there for hours. And I finally asked people, you ever see Marion Barry around here? And they said, no. But if you're gonna go, like that, then, you have to have eyes, and do the research before you can really make, speculation as to, I mean, is it outrageously, could it be? It's possible, but, it's also, it's just speculation.
Yeah.
Hey, Vanessa?
Yeah.
How
Yes,
about we talk to some of our friends out there and welcome Jennifer
am.
Hayden Smith to the show. Thank you
I
for
am.
tuning in, June.
Right.
Jennifer, thank you for your contribution tonight.
Yes. Good evening, Louis. Also, I don't know why Eric isn't here today. He said he has never seen in his life a damn felon be such a rabble rouser that constantly spews BS time and time again. And then he goes on to say that clearly someone is, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, gosh, I don't have my glasses on. Hold on. And don't talk about my glasses because you see, look, this late game makes it obvious that someone running scared is complicit with his BS. I don't disagree. It's so late in the game, and I'm like, really? Karen says misery loves company. Janet overall says good evening. Who else is there?
Mr. Duckett.
Mr. Duckett, he said good evening as well. He said Davis does the same thing every election. And Mr. Duckett, you're absolutely correct.
Bobby Sanchez, who's a kind of newer viewer, we think.
Right.
Good
right.
evening to Bobby Sanchez. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for bringing your thoughts, whether we like them or we don't like them. Keep bringing them. Kenneth Powell.
Exactly.
And Jeffrey McDaniel can talk about police chases. We can talk about them for the next 20 hours. My friend Jan, police chases are typically have tragic endings, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah. And Karen said vehicles should be mandatory to have automatic stall technology installed.
Angela Beatty. Beatty.
Yeah, Beatty. That's my cousin.
Hey, hi, Angela. I missed somebody. Laura, thanks for tuning in, Laura. Keep bringing your comments. We're happy to have you with us, whether you think we're racist or not.
But yeah, I saw that article, Allan, and I didn't pay attention to who wrote the article, but I was like, this is ridiculous. As soon as I saw his name, I was like, here we go.
I like to comment on that.
Go ahead, Jim.
Here's the thing. I was involved in a campaign 2-3 years ago, and Mr. Davis successfully sued the campaign. But we know that Tim Kenny, who used to be the chief judge in circuit court, he was at his wit's end dealing with Mr. Davis. But here's the other side of the argument. People need to get their stuff together and have it in order. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to prove whether Solomon Kinloch has lived in Detroit for a year or not. I just don't think that's possible.
Right.
What is the description? What is the characteristics of living? You're supposed to spend most of your time sleeping and eating in a certain area, and it's almost impossible to prove that unless you have 24-hour surveillance.
Right.
Well, look, it's and it's funny. Some people say, "Oh, it's never been an issue before." It's come up. I mean, Dave Bing moved in from Franklin. His wife never moved to the city. Duggan came in from Livonia, and people still talk about Duggan being from Livonia. So I don't think it's I don't think it'll make a difference in this election whether people decide whether to vote for Kinloch or not. I don't think it'll make a difference. And the same thing with Todd Perkins, whether they just move back or whatever. I mean, the message has been clear. We've had 2 mayors who have moved back into the city to run, and they've gotten elected. So it's certainly not a disqualifier.
So I think the difference is that this guy has decided that he's going to call on the Secretary of State and the Attorney General to do something about something that he doesn't have clear facts about. That's interesting. You're asking 2 lawyers to speculate as to whether or not somebody lives where they say that they live. Okay, right. They're going to spend taxpayer dollars to stake out whether or not this person lives here. Man, go kick rocks. Do something else. As a matter of fact, you don't have a job. Oh, that's right. He used to represent the Highland Park Public Schools. Did he go to prison for taking money from the kids?
I believe that he was.
I'm being facetious.
200,000.
But I don't want to judge him on that. We can't hold, we cannot continue to be.
You cannot. I can.
You made a mistake.
But
you're only bringing it up because what he's doing today.
Listen, that was no mistake. Okay. And let's not talk about today, because you know what? People have things going on in these courthouses. Listen, if you living in a glass house, don't throw no stones. So I'm going to leave it right there. Okay. I'm going to leave it right there. All right. Okay. What else are we going to talk about? I don't know what I did with my classes.
I want to talk a little bit about, we'll go to the national scene where, the Republicans campaigned on the Justice Department and the FBI being political and biased. And we have seen so many political firings. And the latest being James Comey, the former FBI director, his daughter, who was a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, who prosecuted, prosecuted, the Sean, Diddy case, and also prosecuted the Epstein case. And she was just fired. And she's supposed to be top-notch attorney. It's just so blatantly. I don't know.
Let me ask you this though: are you really surprised? Isn't this the administrator, the president of the United States, who really got a reputation for having a show saying you're fired? I mean,
yeah. Well,
no one is guaranteed a job forever unless she had a contract that said, "Hey, I have to stay here."
You're being cavalier about it, though.
You know that. And you know that with those positions, they're political. It happens.
She's not a political appointee. She's an assistant U.S. attorney. She's just a prosecutor. She was fired.
And what I'm saying is, when it's political, because it's politically motivated. Isn't that what you're saying?
Well, yes.
Okay. So.
But normally we saw the U.S. attorney during the last Trump administration fired the U.S. attorney in the Southern District in New York because he wanted to prosecute something that Trump didn't want prosecuted, and he fired him. That's a political appointee by the president, but to start firing line prosecutors, that's pretty.
I don't think anybody should be surprised. That's who the guy is.
That was my point. Marlon Holt. Hey, Marlon, welcome back. He said, "Isn't Obama facing prosecution for what?"
Let's go back to one of Marlon's other points. Marlon and Lewis believe that there should be residency for police and fire. In 2010, the Michigan legislature outlawed it because they felt it was too restricting to get police and firefighters and other people into these jobs. I have mixed emotions on it. I understand that, and I know now, and Allan's talked about it in D.C., that there's opportunity to bring police and fire into your community, whether it's reduced housing, reduced taxes, residency bonuses. In fact, the city I worked in has a residency bonus that pays people to live in a community. I think, I'm not sure that's the best answer, bribing people to live in your community, but residency is definitely, there's a lot of positive about police and firefighters living in their communities. And
I think that there's a lot of positivity about it as well, but I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. I did it the other day. So you're a young police officer, a young firefighter, wife and kids. They want you to live in the community. Where the heck do I send my children to school? That's a question that they have to ask themselves. Are the streets safe? That's a question I have to ask myself. So, do you think that those people who come and apply for jobs in different areas from which they live, do you think that that is part of their analysis when they're, when they apply for these positions? I'm just putting it out there.
And one other thing I want to add, Allan, if I could, just before, just quickly, is where the heck has Marlon been? It's too hot in Florida to be ignoring us. You should be on the show. Go ahead, Allan.
No, I think, there doesn't, I mean, the laws have been established, but I think there are, as Jim was mentioning before, and I've mentioned before, there are incentives to bring people in. I know in DC, there were apartment owners who gave a free apartment to have a cop living in the apartment building. And some of the guys got to take cars home. So there were patrol cars sitting out front, wherever. And so I think it's nice to have people in the community if you can get them in the community. It shouldn't be mandatory, because there may be, you don't want to just limit, the potential pool of employees. But at the same time, it's nice if you can, particularly young people, if they're single or whatever, and they're like, yeah, shit, I can work over. I mean, some of these guys are working tremendous overtime, making a shitload of money in court.
But you didn't answer my question, though. I'm asking a legitimate question. The reason I'm asking this question is because, of course, we're going to be voting for a mayor and city council in a few weeks, and education and safety is an issue. So, as a police officer or as a fire person, I'm asking, let me change it. Do you think by offering those kind of incentives, if those incentives are enough for a person, a young person, to say, hey, my wife and kids are coming here, and we're going to live here in the city of Detroit, and we're going to send our kids DPSD. And I'm not.
Okay, so the answer is,
I'm just asking. And listen, let me say one more thing. Those people who may have had an issue with us having this kind of conversation the other day, listen, Allan lives in the city of Detroit. He can opine. He could give his own comment. And Jim is in the city. He is part of the Metro Detroit area. And we don't mind the comments. But listen, one thing we're going to do is, if you bring the heat, we're gonna return the heat. Okay? All right, go ahead, Allan.
No, look, clearly there's some people are going to be like, no, I don't want to send my kid to, public schools. I want to be in the suburbs. When I come home from work, I don't want to have to worry about whatever. There are certainly times, look, where there are police living in the city, I knew officers who had free apartments and stuff, and people come knocking on the door saying, hey, we need your help. So that's, you're not always off the job, but it's, I think it, and Erica's comment and say it doesn't make a lick of difference. I think it does. I think it helps when there's officers living in the community, living on your block. I think there's a less likelihood of people, firing off their guns on the block when you got an officer living on the block.
I think you're absolutely right. It is a positive.
And I'm going to concur. I'm just stirring the pot. I do believe that it makes a difference that if you live in the community in which you work, I think it makes a big difference. And I'm not just talking about police. I'm not just talking about firemen. I'm also talking about teachers. I'm talking about educators. I do think that it makes a difference. When we grew up, we lived in neighborhoods. We had bus drivers, we had police officers, we had firemen, I had a scientist that worked for the federal government who eventually went to NASA to work. We had a community, okay? We even had a streetwalker that lived on our street. We had a community. So, okay, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was going to say, you don't like my music, our friend from across the border,
right,
who we love to have on the show, is saying that police, I think something about are against police reform. I would ask you to look at the final report, and this is President Obama's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, and a lot of the reforms that were put in place around this time. There's a lot of things that have been done in policing in the last 15 or 20 years that I don't think people are always aware of. A lot of it's, non-lethal force, whether it's a taser, started with pepper spray. There's many things that are in that Reform Act that, we had some of the most brilliant police minds, including Charles Ramsey is the main name that comes to mind, that Allan would know from DC, who led this reform, and a lot of this change has been in place. A lot of reform, and Vanessa can talk about this in the court system and how we try to send people down a different road instead of giving them a criminal conviction. So there's been some reform.
There has been some reform. I mean, I can say I just talked to a client earlier today about, some alternatives rather than leaving out the courthouse with a record. There are some reforms, but they're not funded as much as they should or could be. Um, Also had a conversation about how the prison is the biggest mental health facility on earth. But I digress. I'm going to go to some of these comments and then we're going to shoot to commercial and we're going to come back.
And I'll say something. I want to address Eric's comment.
Okay.
Eric
Let's
said,
do a commercial and then you go, when we
Yeah,
come back, you
sure.
go to Eric's
Yep,
comment.
sure.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
And we're back, Detroit in Black and White. Thank you for watching Friday evening's edition. We're back, and Allan, you want to pick up?
I want to read Eric's comment here. We'll put it on the screen. He says, residency was the law of the land. Detroit was referred to as the murder capital of the world. Residency does not make a difference. And again, I'll say I totally disagree. Where the cops were living, the crime was low. I mean, it didn't stop in other neighborhoods where they weren't living, but at least in the areas where they were living, it did help. I mean, I know there were cops living in Rosedale Park on the east side of Detroit, in different communities, in the city, and it did make a difference in those neighborhoods. But there were other neighborhoods where, there were murders, and there were, so
they live in those neighborhoods. I think it makes a difference. I do. I think residency is very important. And we have one of our commenters, I think Felicia, she says that, Felicia Dean, she says it makes you sensitive to what's going on in the city. And yes, it makes a difference. You also have, who's this? Stephanie Jackson. Good evening. Jennifer Hayden Smith said that she remembered with DP and firemen living around St. John and Ross, and she says it was a great area. Mr. Duckett said if you police the city, you should stay in the city. Janet overall says she's loving the conversation. And Karen Winston said, and then we had the Oxford school shooter. Lewis says 5-year minimum residency. Jeffrey McDaniel says, don't assume that all first responders will come from the suburbs. I don't know if we all assumed that, but you're absolutely correct. I didn't assume that, but I don't think we said all.
And don't be sorry. You don't like my music, said he's sorry. Don't be sorry about anything you say in this show. We might disagree with you.
Right.
Sorry, Vanessa.
Right. No, absolutely not. Mr. 123 says, is it considered strong army if an elected official tell a developer they will have to put a locally owned business in their building? Huh?
I mean, we're seeing it, we're seeing it anyways in a new apartment building like that. We see on the first floor, there's usually commercial, there's some type of commercial outlet on the first floor of these buildings. So I guess it depends on what, I mean, most big apartment buildings now have at least 1 or 2 stores and, multiple and a lot of other stores,
So the way he asked that question, is it considered strong army? I need to know something else. We need to have some more facts here.
Right.
Under what context are you talking about?
He knows what he's talking about. We don't know what he's talking
right. About. That's why I'm saying, huh? Marlon Holt says, we're having good weather. I want to come to the Art Fest, watch treason and Obama. I see why he went so hard against Trump.
So can I talk about seeing how we have an attorney and a world famous journalist on the program? Can I talk just a second about stand your ground laws? People are talking about stand your ground. There really is no stand your ground law in Michigan. In Florida and a couple other states, they say stand your ground. But Tennessee versus Gardner in 1975 said you can't shoot a fleeing felon. That's the U.S. Supreme Court. So you better be really careful if you shoot somebody that's running out your door if they just stole your, I don't know, your CD or your wallet. You may end up in prison for a long time. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to get off that for just a second.
No, it's a good point. I mean, people can. I mean, if someone breaks into your house, I think you've got some pretty good grounds to shoot them.
If they're a threat to you, right?
But if you get robbed on the street, someone holds you at gunpoint and steals your wallet and then starts running, and then you pull out your gun and shoot them in the back, you're going to prison.
Or somebody's stealing your car and they're in your car driving down the street. It's a piece of property. You shoot them, you're going to prison. I'm going to tell you that. I don't care where you are in this country. Maybe not in Florida. I can't say that. So in Michigan, you'd be going to prison if somebody stole your, 1995 Lumina and you shot them.
Right.
Right. I think with guns and I'm not a gun owner, but I do have friends and relatives who have guns, and my advice to them is always like, if you're going down Jefferson and you're going into a liquor store and you wouldn't go in there without a gun, don't go in there with a gun. If somebody holds you up and they take your wallet, don't try to pull the gun on them when they've already got their gun drawn. And third of all, if somebody takes your wallet and starts running, do not shoot them. If you don't.
Well, I was in a little restaurant today, and there was an elderly couple with a young, like a 6, 7, 8-year-old. I assume that was her granddaughter. And these folks could barely walk. When the guy got up out of the booth, I looked at him, and he had a sidearm on under his shirt. It was poking out. And I thought, I could get that gun in about 15 seconds. I was with another former police officer. We could have got that gun from him in 15 seconds, taken it away from him. And, it is what it is. The law is what it is.
Well, when I was at the Detroit News, I was covering a lot of dope gangs and stuff like that. And I was going to some neighborhoods, and I started thinking about getting a gun. And I talked to an officer who Jim, well, yeah. And I said, I'm thinking about getting a gun. He said, no. And I said, what do you mean no? And he said, because you got to be willing to kill somebody, and you're not willing to do that. So don't carry a gun.
And you have to be willing to pay the lawsuit fine. And, once you work your whole life, earn a retirement, you sure as heck don't want to get in a shooting and end up in court for the next 5 years, regardless of nobody dies.
Right. That's interesting.
Because you're going to take your retirement from you that you work so hard to do.
That's interesting because I have been advised by many people to get my license carry because I'm out all the time. And I have not. And to be honest with you guys, for a long time, I was always on the defensive about everything. Can you believe that, Allan?
Oh, no.
So I had a quick temper when I was younger. And so I really didn't want a gun because, I knew I didn't have the temperament. Of course, I'm seasoned now. I have a different attitude. I just don't have the desire to have a gun.
I wasn't attacking Florida, Marlon. I was merely talking about the way the courts work in Florida versus Michigan. So,
and even if you were, Marlon, even if we are attacking Florida, so what? You hear?
He's a former Michigander that lives down there.
Right, you hear?
We're glad he's here.
Right. Kenneth Powell said, policing low vibrational people is an unattainable task. That's why the implementation of 15-minute cities is on the table. Wow. Miss Sheila, good evening. She says, we look forward to the debate tomorrow. Thank Miss Vanessa for being authentic, righteous person. Salute. By the way, there is a forum tomorrow, 100 Black Men. It's presenting a forum tomorrow. We're going to have 8 of the mayoral candidates, as well as some of the city council candidates tomorrow. It starts at 10 o'clock. It's at WCCCD, the Northwest Campus, at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Everybody is welcome to come. I will be one of the moderators. I'll be one of 3 We want you guys to come out and join. And there will be a part in the forum where the audience can ask questions. There's going to be a QR code. So if they don't feel comfortable standing up asking their questions, they'll be able to put their questions in the QR code and be able to ask the candidates the questions that they want. So we hope to see you guys from Detroit and Black that watch Detroit in Black and White at the forum. Eric Brown will be there.
Who are the candidates? Who are the candidates?
It's going to be easier for me to say who are the two candidates that's not coming. Mayor, look, I said Mayor. Lord Jesus, Pastor Solomon Kinlock will not be there, and the former Chief of Police Craig will not be there tomorrow.
And what do you think when people aren't showing up to these things?
Well, listen, I think that Pastor Kinlock has made it clear. He says he's not doing that. He's having an impact by meeting people where they are and going to their homes and talking to them. Now, if I want to stir the pot, I would say, well, that's interesting because you went to Mackinac Island, but I digress. I mean, that's the reality, okay? You went to Mackinac Island, but but people who's going to find fault or have issues with that was not going to support him anyway. That's how I feel.
Right.
As far as Chief Craig is, I think he's gone to a lot of the forums. So I don't know. Maybe he has a something else to do that day. But at this point, I think those people that are going to participate pretty much have made up their mind as to who they're going to support. I think this forum tomorrow actually gives them an upfront view. It's different when you're getting something in the mail, glossy piece of paper with a candidate's name on it and a picture, and it has all their degrees and all their experience. It's different when you get a chance to actually talk to these people and feel these people. And I think it's important. So whether it's in a forum or in somebody's living room,
I have to say, I mean, when I get an opportunity to ask people if I'm at a store or a party or something and they live in Detroit, I'll ask them who they're voting for. And I've got to tell you, a lot of people still aren't sure. It's down to usually two candidates. I talked to somebody who's a member of the Kinlock Church, and she said it's either Kinlock or Mary Sheffield. I'm not sure yet. So I think there's still a fair amount of people there are still trying to narrow it. Got a couple candidates.
Before the show, I talked to somebody before the show. Guess what they said?
They don't know.
No. She said Perkins or Jenkins.
Really? Interesting.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I was like, oh, okay. So, I'm excited about tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what they have to say and hear what they have to say and see them in person and see their mannerism and that kind of thing. The real fireworks is going to start after August the 5th because it'll be down to the last two. So that's when the fireworks are really going to start.
Yeah.
There is a point by Mr. McDaniel that I think Vanessa should respond to, because Mr. McDaniel said, if you discharge your weapon, speak to a lawyer, never the police. So I think maybe Vanessa should talk a little bit more about not limiting yourself to just when you discharge your weapon. If you ever need an attorney, if you ever do anything, go ahead, Vanessa.
If you ever need anything, call Vanessa Moss.
1-800.
More if you commit any act that may be.
If you need any legal help, call Vanessa Moss.
That may be perceived as a crime.
Right. This is interesting.
Not just guns.
Right. We have Stephanie Jackson. She said, please address the non-disclosure of the unlicensed officers performing law enforcement duties in violation of Michigan law and the impact of cases prosecuted or currently being prosecuted.
Do you want to comment on that? Because I can comment in about 5 seconds.
Okay, go ahead and comment on it, Jim.
Every case that a non-licensed police officer is involved with should be dismissed.
And I know Detroit had an issue with that, but I
It
thought
still
they
does. That's why she's bringing it up.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought they had addressed it. And
No, you don't like my music's beating up on me again. I love the guy, but he keeps beating up on me. I don't know what I have to fight back. I mean, no, the police officers and soldiers are not always mentally healthy, and a lot of the reason is some of the things they have to see on a regular basis.
Yeah. Miss Sheila says people say Jenkins and Perkins should team up. Someone said, Miss Winston said it's a hard no for Sheffield. Eric said he had a conversation with someone today, and they were saying how they're not surprised at the high amount of undecided voters. And I think that has so much to do with we have so many people to choose from. Again, you hear people say what Allan says. I really don't know. I really, really don't know. The person I talked to today, I was like, oh, for real. And she said, for real. So, you never know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, people are still trying to figure it out. But, once it gets down to two people, then it's going to be brass knuckles out, going at each other. And
there are lots of good choices, and that makes it more difficult instead of less difficult, I think.
Yep. You also have Adolph's favorite fan, Marlon Holt, say he misses Adolph. He'll be glad when he comes on tomorrow. True Sensation says he can't wait for the and Marlon knows I'm being funny.
True Sensation's our friend from
True
out in Oakland.
Says I can't wait. I think she's talking about, maybe they're talking about tomorrow. I'm not sure. Miss Sheila said, Mr. Jim, I know when you are right. Eric said at Karen, a well-connected person on Tuesday stated to me that they and their network will in no way be voting for Mary. Oh, wow. And Sheila asked you, Allan, who are you voting for?
Well, I'm still, contemplating.
Who are your favorite three? Give us three that you like.
Well, I don't even want to do that.
Okay.
I just feel uncomfortable with it. I mean, look, I think clearly, when we talk about 9 candidates, there really aren't 9 candidates. I mean, Jonathan Barlow's.
How many do you think is? How many are there? I
think there's really maybe 5 or I'd have to count them up, even 5 or maybe 5. Like Jonathan. Jonathan Barlow is a nice guy. He's very articulate, but he's not even ranking there. And then the businessman, I can't remember his name. Joel.
They've all been on the show, right, Allan? Vanessa, yeah, they've all been on the show. And if you're undecided, go back and look at some of these segments. Right. They're all over the media, right? Whether it's Miss Jenkins.
But so the question becomes, I mean, look, the Kinloch people, they feel confident. They are very confident that they're going to be either 1 or 2. But look, we had our 30th anniversary of the Detroit newspaper strike at UAW Union Hall on Dix Road in Dearborn, just over the border. And on the way back, I saw all these signs from Todd Perkins. Adolph always says signs don't vote, but the president says something, and when people aren't sure, they help. I mean, I get bombarded with flyers. I don't pay attention to them, really.
Yeah.
And Eric makes a great point. We may all be surprised on August 6th.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, the Democratic winner of the New York primary, he was polling at 1% in February, and he killed Cuomo. So.
Don't let me look. Don't let me. You talk about the guy in New York.
Yeah.
Lord Jesus have mercy. It's all I got to say.
We're going to need to have a whole segment on that.
I'm going to say it one more time. Lord Jesus, have mercy. But
people get to elect whoever they want to elect, and when we quit doing that, we have a problem.
Right? Exactly. There was somebody that I wanted to a comment that I want to read. Shoot.
I don't know if Florida changed Marlon or Marlon changed Florida. He's going to have to let us know that.
Marlon said he likes Jenkins too. Media always, Kennepaw said, media always chooses your candidates. Sheila said, people say Ken Locke should continue to lead his church. Thank you. Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. So I think we are um, uh, coming to a close of our show for the evening. I want to again announce that we will be back tomorrow morning from 10 to 11 o'clock. I won't be there tomorrow. However, I will be there tomorrow. I'll cue in while we're um, participating in the forum tomorrow. 100 Black Men, along with the Trend Black and White Candidates Forum, mayoral candidates, as well as city council candidates. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, WCCCD, the Northwest Campus. Come on out, participate, watch Black and White tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Thank you so much, Jeffrey Daniel. Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you so much, Kenneth. Thank you so much, Eric Brown. Thank you, Stephanie Jackson, Jennifer Lewis. You don't like my music, Miss Sheila, Mr. 1213, Lewis, Jennifer, Zand. How do you say that name? Zard. I hate messing up somebody's
I'm
name.
not following. But this show would not be the way it is without the contributions of everybody. True Sensation, my old friend. She's not old, but we've been friends for a little while. Kenneth, Mr. Duckett. Willis Martin, Duggan for mayor. I missed that one. Sorry, Willis.
Yep.
Stephanie Jackson.
I think he said, did he say Duggan for mayor or Duggan for governor?
I may have made a mistake. I made governor. I'm sorry. Did I say mayor? My mistake.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer Hayden Smith, for tuning in. We hope you join us again. Keep bringing helping us. You're helping us. We're learning.
Yeah.
And our friend Marlon from Florida. It's too hot down there to be outdoors, so spend a little more time with us.
Bye, Marlon. Thank you so much for joining. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good evening.